call me Roy.
Hi, welcome to Roy's Book Reviews. In this video, I'm going to give you the lowdown on the novel We Cast a Shadow by Maurice Ruffin. We Cast a Shadow is very much a message book, as opposed to one meant exclusively to tell an engaging story. The author had some things to get off his chest about race-based self-hatred, particularly African Americans who loathe the skin they are in and long to be a whiter shade of pale. Such people exist both in the real world and in a range of storytelling. The OG of this archetype is the stereotype that Uncle Tom of Uncle Tom's Cabin morphed into over time. When someone is called an Uncle Tom these days, it is meant as an insult that doesn't reflect the book character who is based on a real person. Instead, the derogatory expression is meant to imply that someone is like the character portrayed by Samuel Jackson in Django Unchained, a person dedicated to subservience to whiteness and rejection of solidarity with his blackness. The protagonist of We Cast a Shadow resides in a fictional near-future world where medical procedures can transform African American features into Caucasian features. This isn't especially far-fetched, since plastic surgery and skin bleaching are options that exist in real-life current time. Michael Jackson famously changed his appearance from Afrocentric to Eurocentric over the course of his career, which included releasing a song where he claimed it doesn't matter if you're black or white. It, of course, matters a great deal to many people for a variety of reasons. The duration of a song can sufficiently express a message of racial pride or lack thereof. A short story would do the trick as well. To stretch it over the course of a full-length novel, ample plot needs to accompany the statement. Whether that book is Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye, or Paul Beatty's The Sellout, or Maurice Ruffin's We Cast a Shadow, the author is obligated to give us characters to care about, and an objective being pursued that readers root for or against. Readers are not a congregation of faithful believers who have seated themselves in pews to be preached to, the delivered message pre-approved. Book authors, regardless of whether they are moralizing or strictly entertaining, must provide a narrative that's compelling enough to keep us hooked. It's my opinion that Maurice Ruffin, certainly a talented writer, was partially successful in We Cast a Shadow. But the material felt stretched out longer than was necessary. I did not like the protagonist at all, which is fine since he isn't written to be liked. The man is consumed with racial self-hatred, which if kept to himself would be bad enough, but it is redirected outward towards his son. They live in a society where being black is a pretty awful situation. The near future setting is similar to America's Jim Crow era. In the real world, much progress has taken place in society since then. But since progress is possible, it stands to reason that so is regression. Unfortunately, that is currently taking place at an uncomfortably rapid pace. As for the world within the pages of this novel, society's regression has moved further along. Segregation has regained its foothold. So it is somewhat understandable that a father would want to spare his son from the hardships of his blackness when the means now exist to make it go away. His son Nigel is literally mixed, not only because he's biracial, but portions of his skin are light in color and other portions are darker. The darkness is what the unnamed protagonist hopes to obliterate. Any sympathy one might be inclined to feel for this man is squandered by the fact that he does not care how his son feels about erasing his racial identity, or how his wife, who's white, feels about it. With single-minded obsession, he thinks only about gaining what he feels will cure all ills for Nigel, which he feels makes him a protective father. But the truth is that he's a drug-addicted a-hole who eventually, inevitably, destroys relationships with the people he loves most. A lot of this book, too much in my opinion, is dedicated to the narrator's job. Only by getting promoted to partner at his law firm will he make enough money to afford the surgery for his son. I did not find his career machinations especially compelling or worthy of the page count that they occupied. Monotony was setting in for me until the book made a sharp turn by removing Nigel and his mother. The lead character's wife cannot be reclaimed, but perhaps their son Nigel, who has gone into hiding, can be found. Is the objective to repair the relationship, something he fails to do with his own father, to finally fulfill the role of protecting his child's well-being from destructive forces outside as well as within the home? Or is the search undertaken to finish what was started, Nigel's reinvention? I will refrain from spoilers. Instead, I'll wrap up this review by saying that Maurice Carlos Ruffin is a fine writer whose messaging in We Cast a Shadow comes through loud and clear with every satirical sentence. But I do wonder if more impact, on me at least, would have resulted from the well-executed prose had its author given us a little less to chew on. I mentioned a couple of books that this one reminded me of, one of them being The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. I talk a little about The Bluest Eye in a video I did where I discuss a handful of Toni Morrison books. The other book is The Sellout by Paul Beatty. I did a full-length video that's just about that book. And this book is definitely comparable to Paul Beatty's book in a number of ways. The difference is that in We Cast a Shadow, the main character is just someone who it's like impossible to truly empathize with and sympathize with. I mean, you understand that he wants to spare his son pain, but he's just so, maniacal in his plan and does not listen to any kind of dissension, ignores, pleas and begging, anyone saying that they feel differently from him. He knows what's right. He knows the only solution to problems that may or may not exist or somewhere down the line. And it's just very difficult to understand his way of thinking. Whereas the lead character in The Sellout, he also is incomprehensible as well, but it's a much more lighthearted fashion. So you're kind of chuckling at his lunacy and his bizarre way of looking at the world. You don't really dislike him, you're just befuddled by him. You kind of roll your eyes with every antic that he does. In the unnamed character in We Cast a Shadow, you kind of want to reach into the book and give him a good smack, because he really gets under the skin. But it's definitely an interesting book that I do recommend to those of you who are interested in books about race and racism and identity, and do not mind stories where it's not just about the plot, it's not just about trying to entertain, but is really trying to say something about the ways of the world. I'm an author myself, and I definitely usually have something to say in the stories that I write, the words that I put down. So I am definitely with Mr. Ruffin, and I think he has some powerful things to say. I wish I liked this book a little bit more than I did, but it's definitely worth the read. You may enjoy it more than I did. I think that's about all I have to say. I do recommend it. I do definitely recommend The Sellout. I recommend The Bluest Eye. I recommend that you just go out and get yourself a good book to read, whatever it's about, whether it's serious, intense stuff or light-hearted stuff, brain candy material. Just grab a book to escape this increasingly dark world that we're living in. Leadership has taken us down some strange paths, dragging us back to a past that we did not want to return to, and yet here we are. So whether it's the near future or the not so distant past, there have been times in America that were not so wonderful, and great writers have the obligation to shed light on them. And that is what Mr. Ruffin does in this book. Until the next time, this is Roy wishing you happy reading.